that it was a 10-foot grizzly.
And the connection between the weather and the nation's blood supply.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. The powerful Hurricane Lee is on the move, and that may be good news for New England. The information from the National Hurricane Center shows Lee could impact New England and Nova Scotia this weekend. However, we must stress the path is still very uncertain. Rhode Island meteorologist Christina Lee is tracking Lee for us in Providence this morning.
Good morning. We are tracking closely Category 3 Hurricane Lee with 115-mile-per-hour winds, gusts to 140, and the next 24 hours are going to be critical as it continues its track and even hooks off to the right as it continues its journey up the eastern seaboard. It could be weakening as it does so, but as it weakens, its wind field will be expanding, which means some into New England will be feeling the effects of gusty winds, even coastal erosion and big waves. It could be dropping in strength Friday into Saturday from a hurricane into a post-tropical low as it heads into the Gulf of Maine, but impacts will be felt all across New England. And although we're still watching it over the next several days on exactly what track it will take, high surf and beach erosion is a big issue, and also the risk of some rain and high winds, tropical storm force for some out towards the Cape. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Christina Ernie.
And Hurricane Lee is already rewriting the rules. Meteorologists were shocked at how quickly it grew into a massive Category 5 storm. Meteorologist John Gum says the conditions were just right for that to happen.
Well, last week we saw rapid intensification of Hurricane Lee, and one of the reasons for that, ingredients were just perfect for this thing to intensify rapidly. So let's talk about what ingredients you need to get tropical development. First and foremost, you need warm water, not just at the surface of the ocean, but all the way down through the ocean. The heat content of the ocean has to be high. And we have seen record levels of this heat in the ocean this year, fueling these storms. 80 degrees or above is typically where we need to be, but we've seen upper 80s, low 90s on some of these water temperatures as of late. In addition to the warm water, you need converging winds coming together at the surface to force air upwards and to begin to get that shower and thunderstorm activity to develop. You also need abundant moisture or humidity in the atmosphere over top of these things for them to feed on. Finally, you need winds aloft that are roughly blowing in the same direction and that aren't too strong. If the winds are too strong, they'll shear the tops off these tropical systems and they won't develop. But if you have generally the same direction of winds, they're generally not too terribly strong, and what we call the wind shear is low, all of these ingredients together can form hurricanes. And if all of these ingredients are perfect, then these things can grow huge quickly in a short matter of time and intensify rapidly, just like we saw with Hurricane Lee last week.
And for the second straight day, heavy rain triggered flash flooding in Rhode Island on Monday. The water flooded homes and businesses, including an apartment building right here. Residents saved basically what they could. And last night, firefighters rescued 25 people trapped in cars and also in stores. Leanna Falk is in Providence with that story.
And Providence Fire says that about 4 feet of water has come up in this lot. And as you can see where it lands on my boots, I'm about 6 feet tall. So that gives you a better sense of how much water that we're actually seeing here. Now, when first responders arrived, they found multiple people trapped in about a foot of water. Inflatable boats were used to rescue 25 people. Many of them were stuck inside their vehicles or inside some of the stores. Rescue teams ferried those boats back and forth until each person was brought to higher ground. Everyone is safe tonight. No one injured or required hospitalization. Chief Jutras says it will take some time, though, before this floodwater recedes.
Difficulty was with people not heeding the warning to not come through flooded areas. As we were blocking autos from coming through, we had others go around, park cars, and attempt to drive through the floods. I had a vehicle that's now stalled underneath the overpass for 146. He went by, stopped autos, and tried to drive through the flood on his own and did not make it through.
Heavy rain pounded northern Massachusetts, leading to flooding in the region. A state of emergency was declared on Lehman Street. The water is now threatening a local dam. The rising water also caused several sinkholes to develop. Some people were rescued from their cars. Others had to be evacuated from their homes. Schools, though, are closed. A humanitarian crisis is developing in northeastern Libya. More than 2,000 people have reportedly died in flooding, and this morning the Red Cross says 10,000 others are feared missing. Floodwater burst through two dams overrunning the city of Derna. The same storm system's expected to bring heavy rain and flooding to northern Egypt today. That includes the region around Cairo. And here at home, we have seen more billion-dollar weather and climate disasters in 2023 than ever before. New data from NOAA indicates that so far this year, the U.S. has been hit with 23 disasters that each cost at least $1 billion. The old record was 22 events in 2020. NOAA is still analyzing Hurricane Idalia and other weather events, including drought in the South and also in the Midwest. A Montana man is recovering after being attacked by a grizzly bear this past week, and he's expected to spend a lot of time in the hospital in Salt Lake City due to his injuries. But his sister spoke to our Amanda Gilbert to find out, what saved his life. A warning: the photos of his injuries may be tough to look at.
My first reaction was, is he even going to make it?
Rudy Norlander runs a side-by-side rental business, and this weekend a dad and son duo asked him to help track a wounded deer near Big Sky, Montana.
And he came upon a smaller bear.
Rudy got out of his vehicle when a different, larger bear came out from behind a tree.
He had 1 second from the time that he saw the grizzly charging him to fire. It misfired. And so then the bear was on top of him.
He tried to fight back the whole attack.
That's what he said. It was a 10-foot grizzly. He hit the bear on the nose.
The dad and son stepped in to help.
But he didn't want to hit my brother. And so he waited until he could get a shot off and scare the bear away.
Rescue workers flew him to a hospital in Montana before he was taken to Salt Lake.
Got his whole bottom jaw, puncture wounds in his head from bites, and then he's got puncture wounds in his arms.
Carrie says Rudy is using a whiteboard to communicate.
We ask him questions and then he writes, and that's how I knew that he said, the tree was here, he was here, grizzly here, 1 second.
And he hasn't lost his sense of humor.
On his whiteboard, bear French kissed me. And she laughed and she goes, oh, I bet it had bad breath. And he shook his head yes.
And now some progress in Hawaii. The alert level for the Kilauea volcano has been downgraded yesterday, 1 day after erupting again. Officials say no infrastructure is being threatened and there is no threat of significant ash emission outside of that immediate area. Kilauea is the second largest volcano on Hawaii and is one of the world's most active. This is the third eruption this year alone. In 2019, a major eruption led to the destruction of hundreds of homes and also businesses. A lone hiker gets a great idea after getting caught in bad weather in a remote part of a national park in Alaska. He used a wildlife webcam to try and get help. Explore.org says some website users were watching a live stream, likely hoping to spot a bear. Instead, they saw a man walking up to the camera, looking into the lens, and also asking for help. It only took a few hours for a search and rescue team to find him after users contacted the website moderators who alerted park rangers. After that, the hiker was brought back to safety. Good for him. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, the American Red Cross has announced a critical blood shortage. We'll look at how severe weather is putting a strain on reserves, and we'll find out why some people can smell a rainstorm before it even arrives.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. We're tracking more unsettled weather in the Northeast in the coming days. Any leftover clouds, fog, potentially some drizzle this morning. That moves out for most of the Northeast. Those of you in northern New England, you'll still be dealing with some clouds and showers there. Our next round of showers area-wide in the Northeast will arrive on Wednesday. This is about 8 o'clock in the morning. Notice New York New Jersey getting wet during this period. This will be making its way into parts of New England during the afternoon and evening.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. We start the day with temperatures generally in the 70s at 9 a.m. By lunchtime, we're well into the 80s, and some spots touching near 90 during the heat of the day in the afternoon. Now, as we work to the late day, especially into the evening, there could be some spotty showers and thunderstorms that move in with our next weather maker, a cold front, which is going to lead in a nice fall feel as we head into the end of the week. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Readers. A look at your southeast forecast highs, looking at 90 in Birmingham, 90 in Mobile, 91 Tampa, Raleigh, 90 degrees compared to 75 in Nashville. Looks like there's going to be more cloud cover around Memphis and Nashville as we see this system moving in. Little frontal boundary that's going to be dropping temperatures, and also bringing in some showers and thunderstorms. Along the I-95 corridor, I-75, looking at a few pop-up showers and thunderstorms through the afternoon. And then it looks like as we get to the evening hours, a few scattered showers as well.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
A dire warning from the American Red Cross, which provides around 40% of the nation's blood and blood components to patients who really need it. The organization says their supply has hit critically low levels. Mandy Gaither has more on what led to this shortage and the weather tie-in.
For months, back-to-back climate-driven disasters have further strained the U.S. blood supply, forcing the American Red Cross to sound the alarm, saying their supplies are critically low.
It has become challenging for us to meet the demand of our hospitals.
With a busy summer travel season and back-to-school activities, the organization was already seeing low donor turnout. That, paired with blood drive cancellations because of extreme weather, has led to the national blood supply dropping by nearly 25% since early August, despite a constant demand.
Blood cannot be manufactured, it can't be stockpiled, and really it's the blood on the shelves on a daily basis that is needed to save lives.
From emergencies to cancer patients and women in delivery, blood is used to help patients every day. The Red Cross says all blood types are urgently needed, but there's an emergency need for platelet donors and type O blood donors.
About 40% of this country's population is eligible to donate, and only about 4% do.
When Hurricane Idalia slammed into the southeast, the Red Cross says it was unable to collect more than 700 units of blood and platelets, and the storm season isn't over. Hurricane Lee is now being closely monitored.
The need is constant, and it's the patients that are at the other end of this life-saving product.
Well, have you ever said it smells like rain before it actually rains? There's science behind that change in scent. Meteorologist Violet Skyborer says it's not the rain itself, but it's something else.
It could be one of three things. So let's get into it. The first is a soil-dwelling bacteria that secretes geosmin when producing spores. And raindrops help release this earthly-smelling chemical into the air. So that's one thing you could be smelling. The second is from plants. They secrete oils during dry periods, and the rain causes compounds to be released from those oils that we smell, called petrichor. And the third, last but not least, is lightning. It can actually split oxygen molecules into individual atoms. And then those atoms can reattach to O2 molecules to make O3, which is ozone. And that has a distinct pre-rain odor. So That's what you could be smelling.
Well, if you're not currently dealing with rain, chances are you are still dealing with high heat or have been in the past week. And that means you probably did some sweating. The weather plays a much bigger role in sweating than you may actually realize. Meteorologist Brandon Lawson explains.
First off, our bodies like to be at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So anytime we get above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, our bodies, they sweat. They sweat to cool us off. That sweat evaporates off our skin. Look how happy those water molecules are. When they evaporate, we get evaporative cooling. But notice, this is on a dry day where you have a lot of dry air out there. There's not a lot of water molecules in the atmosphere. So those water molecules were just able to easily evaporate off in the atmosphere, and you were able to cool down easily. That's why it's so comfortable on a low humidity day. But the issue is with the muggy conditions, you already have so many water molecules in the atmosphere. So take a look at this. These water molecules, they're not too happy, right? It's like when you're on an elevator. I don't like being on an elevator with a bunch of people because I'm kind of claustrophobic a little bit. It's just tight spaces. And that's what the water molecules are saying here. It's like, man, I have no room to move around in the atmosphere. So what happens on this hot and muggy day? Well, our body sweats. It's going to sweat here. But unfortunately, these water molecules, they can't evaporate off into the atmosphere because there's already too many water molecules out there. Those water molecules are like, absolutely not. Nobody else is getting on this elevator. That's kind of how I am when there's a lot of people in the elevator there. So those water molecules, they obviously stay on our body, and we end up just sweating over and over again here, and that evaporation process basically fails here. So evaporative cooling fails on muggy days, and sometimes our body can heat up too much, which is why it's so important on hot and muggy days. You want to make sure that you're taking breaks, staying hydrated, and monitoring for those symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson.
And if you live in a city, you might be sweating more than people living out in the county. That's because of something called an urban heat island. Theron Zahn has more.
Urban heat islands are cities where the concrete and asphalt absorb the sun's rays and cause them to be warmer than the surrounding areas. You're looking at Seattle here, but according to NASA, for an example, New York City is 7 degrees warmer on average than the surrounding areas. And according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, urban heat islands can actually be up to 20 degrees hotter than surrounding areas. One solution, according to the EPA, is right in front of you. They say planting more trees or leaving more trees when making development can actually cause those heat islands to be not quite so hot.
And you may have heard of Nick Uhas. He's been on Big Brother and America's Got Talent. He's also a scientist making incredible videos on YouTube. Emily Gracie sat down with Nick to talk about his love of science.
I fell in love, I would say, with science probably as far back as sixth grade. And I became a biology major in college. And then along the way, I started studying at Yale University economics and then video production in the summer. That changed the route because I was like, oh man, this is really cool. You can film, almost like a demonstration. You can talk about what you're excited about.
So you sent ice cream to the outer limits of our atmosphere. Where did that idea come from and how did it play out?
We saw some video of somebody sending something to the edge of outer space. And I thought, that's incredible. But I don't want to just do it. I don't want to just send something. I want to use this as a learning opportunity. So I thought the thing that I'm most curious about is how quickly does it get cold? How quickly would ice cream then melt from the ground if it were hot on the way up to the edge of outer space? And as it turns out, not to ruin this experiment, but it gets cold really fast.
The best part is when you eat the ice cream at the end.
So half the fun of this particular experiment is literally finding it. The part that is totally unpredictable, there's no drone that's guiding it. Once the balloon pops, it just, comes down through a parachute. You don't really know where it's going to end up. And I think that's kind of the fun of the whole equation.
Okay, so tell me about the fire tornado.
And so the fire tornado used to be this thing you get a trash can that had kind of holes in the side, and then you would spin it a small one. So we wanted to put our own spin on it and say, how would we make this even wilder? So we created a fire tornado device, essentially a very shallow pan that would have fans surrounding it that would allow you to actually see the bottom of the vortex because it would reflect. We really amped it up. And so we got it to be about 20 feet tall inside of a warehouse.
Do any of these trial and errors involve trips to the hospital?
Not yet.
As we head to break, we take in beautiful views of Montana from the sky.
Good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Take a look at your weather story across the Midwest. Dry across the plains with highs in the 70s. We do have some rain, though, working its way across the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes for the day today. Moving into the day tomorrow, most of the Midwest will be dry, and the Great Lakes area cooling off a little bit, but the plains warming back into the 80s. By the time that we get to your Thursday, temperatures nudge up a little bit more for most of us and have a little bit of light rain trying to sneak its way in across the northern plains.
Good Tuesday morning to you, meteorologist Chris Huchat. Look at our forecast today across the region, and we'll have some patchy cloudiness, cooler temperatures, 60s and 70s for highs, a few showers, couple thunderstorms, of course, hotter temperatures in South Texas. And then we head into Wednesday's forecast. You see the occasional showers and thunderstorms we do have from the morning into the afternoon. Stays on the cooler side for at least half the region with highs in the 70s and 80s. Even in the south part, they're looking a little bit better with low to mid 90s for highs.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We finally got cooling working its way into the Southwest after those incredible record high temperatures here for the last several days, weeks. We're going to see the temperatures finally dropping just below 100 degrees. Now, the next weather maker moving in will continue to be another cold front to continue bringing in cooling, which will spawn plenty of showers and thunderstorms with a threat of flash flooding for parts of the Southwest. That's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
An incredible moment between beachgoers and this hammerhead shark just feet from the shoreline in Palm Beach, Florida. The drone photographer estimates the shark was roughly 14 feet long, and the approaching dorsal fin didn't scatter this group of 8. Hammerheads look quite imposing, but humans aren't on their list of prey. Fewer than 20 unprovoked attacks have been documented since the year 1900.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Earlier, we talked about how you can smell rain before it arrives, but clouds can also give you a clue if rain is on the way. Meteorologist Kristen Clark has more.
I always say that observations are the foundation of any science, especially meteorology. Simply observing our surrounding environment and the clouds above can be a sign of what weather is to come. Just take a look at these alto cumulus clouds. We call this also a mackerel sky because the cloud formations resemble the back of a mackerel fish. Whenever we see this type of cloud, it could be a harbinger of rain soon to come. And sure enough, when all these alto cumulus clouds were observed over western Washington, rain showed up in less than 24 hours.
Thank you so much for joining us. Fall is around the corner. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll look at this year's fall foliage forecast. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.